because our educational providers is not adequately trained, and we have wonderful statistics about the level of maths or language capacity in the educational system. So we know the statistics about around how many children we lose out of this pipeline, even before they get the opportunity to come to university. We also lose them because of stunting. We heard the figures during the last 3 days, and we do know what's the impact of stunting on ability to learn and further develop. We also have, it's roughly 2.3 million HIV, so a lot of children sit with that as an additional burden. So the educational pipeline is not pumping enough students into the universities or technical colleges for us to train. The next point I want to make is the university system and the universities per se. And if you look at them, it's only 10 universities in the African continent, there's roughly 1,270 of them, that actually falls within the top 500 of the world. So what it's saying is that African universities are lagging behind. The next hurdle we have is that we are currently losing, once we've trained a student up to a PhD level, we are losing them. And we are losing them to a lot of developed countries. And we need to focus on that diaspora and bring them back. We also know that we have a missing middle. And with that missing middle, we are not able to grow these academic institutions. We have wonderful gems, and a lot of them sit on the stage, and that's your post-60 generation, and we hope they're going to mentor the next generation coming through. But Africa has a problem. And if you look at the reality that only 59 of the more than 500 Nobel laureates came from this continent, even though we are the biggest, it tells us something's wrong and something needs to be done rapidly if we are going to address our challenges of food security, malnutrition, hunger, and poverty. So how do we fix this broken pipeline? Well, there's 7 examples, and I wanted to share with you some of the African Academy of Science. We have more than 500, almost 600 fellows, and these are the brightest minds in the continent. And if we can foster and protect them and ensure that they get funding to create centers of excellence where we can plug them in so that they can do research to address our critical issues and challenges in this continent, we will be able to a limited extent, fast track this young generation that's coming through this pipeline. And that's our responsibility. So very importantly, I wanted to share with you one more statistic, and it's a pity it's not on the slide on the screen. But I recently did a very interesting analysis, and I was looking at food safety, food security, how many universities in Africa offer those degrees. In fact, it's 2 or 3. So we are obviously not training the right. We have a skills gap. We don't, for instance, train enough soil scientists, plant pathologists, and we need to rethink this. So if we want to create innovation, we need to ensure that we do adequate training and that we include innovation into that training package. But the most important part of is this recent mapping that we've done, and we've used AI technology to map recent patents. And I just took one field of study, and I took one as post-harvest technology. What recent patents have been actually granted in the field of post-harvest technology, taking it from the field to the table, to the market, to ensure that we retain quality and reduce safety risks in that whole pipeline. And the most interesting part was that most of the patents filed at the moment comes from China, by far. And what's also interesting, when we analyzed the recent patents filed, that most of these come from Chinese universities. And what is very clear is that China has been significantly investing in universities to build their next generation of young scientists. They've actually used mobility grants and sent a lot of their young PhDs for postdocs into the USA or Europe. A lot of them must return. They have special programs to actually help grow that unique human capacity in the continent. And that's part of that growth that we see in China. And I think that's one option for the African continent. We need to form these networks. And another extremely important point is if we create the correct environment, we should not only be thinking of creating the infrastructure such as laboratories or expensive diagnostic equipment, or platforms such as whole genome sequencing or the cyclotron. But we should rather focus on a network of laboratories that we open them up and we move our scientists between these and we use training in that context, and we support research programs through these networks and alliances. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Liz. And Liz is from the University of Pretoria. And by the way, she's been elected as the president of the Academy of Sciences in Africa. So she's a powerful woman. And I want to openly tell Dr. Amara, our food safety guru, please catch her. There's a lot that we can do together to address the food safety issues in Africa. So Dr. Amara, don't leave her off the hook. But you see, she made an important statement, the brain drain in Africa. In China, they were deliberate. They take their people to America, to Europe, to gain skills, and they come back. I know they did that in Malaysia. I know that they did that in Singapore. But Africans, when they leave, they don't come back. What is wrong with us? Why are we struggling? Because our people don't come back. Is it the way you treat them, Dr. Wole? Is that the way you treat? Is it because of the way you treat them? But it is my hope that we can wake up and give the youth some hope that the brain drain will stop at some point. But I also want to go on to another important session. And this time I want to bring in another dimension about looking at innovation for increased productivity and sustainable agriculture. I want to know about the innovative technologies and practices in agriculture and how we can use innovation to address the challenges in food production and distribution. And there is no other person than Matthews, the Executive Director of the Zambian Food and Nutrition Council. Please, take it away.
Thank you very much. I just want to make a slight correction. I am the Deputy Executive Director for the National Food and Nutrition Commission here in Zambia. Okay, I hope when you leave, you are going to come back. Huh? We've heard that Africans have a problem. When they leave, they don't come back. So I wanted to start my discussion by just provoking everybody's mind on how do we produce more with less. I think in the 3 days, this is the third day, in the 3 days that we've been here, discussions around the food systems, transformation, we've heard quite a lot that has been said. And all of us here know that the food systems transformation agenda is trying to achieve a situation where we'll have, safer foods, healthy food, and nutritious foods available to all. At the same time, offering a meaningful livelihood for those that work in the agricultural value chain. And, part of this agenda is to ensure that, the earth is also well nourished. So how do we produce food? How do we ensure that Africa is food secure without, causing other problems? MPs in the discussion yesterday, I think there was one member of parliament who raised the issue that, with more food production efforts, the likelihood of deforestation is actually very, very high. So with that, we also realize that with our efforts, the likelihood that we might actually bring a lot of harm is very, very possible. And of course, just this, was it last month? October was last month, today is the 1st of November. We were, I think a number of countries were celebrating World Food Day on the 16th of October. And the theme this year was water is life, water is food, leave no one behind. How do we also look at the issues of water in our irrigation so that at the end of the day, we are not wasteful, water security is also not compromised. So this is where, you know, innovation becomes quite key. How do we get to produce more with less? How do we use less water in our food production efforts? If we can be adopting smarter approaches, including drip irrigation, it becomes much easier for us not to create the problems that I was just talking about. The professor earlier mentioned, the fact that artificial intelligence, for example, is becoming more and more common, especially with our colleagues in the West. But how are Africans also positioning ourselves better so that we can, embrace artificial intelligence in our agricultural and just our food production efforts? And I think one of the things that is, all of us might agree here, is the fact that even with these innovations and the artificial intelligence that we might be adopting as Africans, it seems more like it's a preserve of the wealthy and the poor smallholder farmers who feed all of us, are neglected in the process. Being a budget analyst and having had the privilege to review budgets, of course, looking for nutrition and just food security, in the budgets in East and Southern Africa, you would realize that if there are budget lines that are getting less attention, and maybe with the trends that we've been, following, you realize that less and less of these budgets for research and development in the agricultural space are being, budgets are reducing. So all of that worries, the analyst, because you realize that at the end of the day, there will be less in research and coming up with those new technologies that might help us to achieve our food transformations agenda. So all of us have a responsibility to ensure that we look into that. I also just wanted to talk about the use of drones and other technologies that are being seen, especially with our colleagues that are maybe better developed. We need to see more of this, especially in the rural parts of our countries, if at all we are going to make any meaningful advancement. And also, how do we utilize extension services to ensure that they become a channel, because the extension service becomes that bridge between governments, between experts and the farmer. Most of the times in our part of the world, you'd realize that extension workers are only maybe giving advice on what you should grow, when you should start growing, but they're not engaging the farmers to also look at healthier options or even better methods that would help them be more productive, that would protect the environment, that would also just help them to produce more with less. So that's the reason why at times all these efforts that we are discussing here end up in the urban areas and the rural setting, deforestation, or the interventions that we are trying to put in to prevent the effects of climate change are not working. So for me, I think as I try to conclude or just sum up, my contribution, I just wanted to indicate that, with meaningful innovation and, increased interaction of these innovations with the producers of food, especially the smallholder farmer, we can have meaningful food systems transformation in Africa. So thank you, I end here.
Thank you so much, Mr. Matthews. Last but not the least of our panelists, we want to know about the role of agroecology in nutrition and food security. Is there a nexus between agroecology and nutrition? If you are able to expand on how agroecology and organic agriculture can address the challenges in food security to do us a world of good. And ladies and gentlemen, after this, the opportunity is there for you to give us any burning questions or any comments. Our panelists have been very generous with us. They've given us some food for thought. But I would also give you some few minutes to ask a few questions. But before then, let's not deny Dr. David Amudavi from giving us his perspective from the agroecological perspective. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir. I hope I can get my presentation. Yeah, about brain drain, I just want to make a quick remark that one professor came to the Institute of Development Studies in Cornell University when I was doing my PhD, and he said, look, guys, let us not talk of brain drain, but brain circulation. But make sure you go back and invest more at home. So I'm hoping those who go to study outside, they get the opportunity and the privilege to come back and contribute to their home economies. Ladies and gentlemen, I think that is not my presentation, Alex. You saved a wrong one. I want to talk about, and it's important I get my presentation. I had sent it because it's about systems thinking and how we can apply it to agroecology. Ladies and gentlemen, we have all seen how the question of food security is very important with this continent. And the statistics show over 800 million people are still food insecure. And we also know that a lot of resources have been invested in research and extension, going back way to the Green Revolution, to the double Green Revolution up to today. And you've also seen how some of the best institutions on this continent are investing a lot in agriculture. But why is it that we are not yet food secure?
This is yours?
Just a second.
Okay. Whilst he's looking for his slide, I don't like operating in a vacuum. And there are some notes that I've been picking in speaking with this gentleman. And for me, it is important to note that if we want to bring about innovation in our science and research, it is important that we have to begin to work collaboratively so that we can identify who the partners are. And you know, in the scaling up nutrition, have you found it? In the scaling up nutrition, there is the opportunity. You want to? No.
It's just gotten there. Okay. But I can pick up.
Yes.
Yeah.
You pick up.
Yeah, thank you very much. So sometimes we get asked, can agroecology or organic agriculture feed the world? And I keep also asking myself, can industrial or predominantly conventional agriculture feed the world? And why is it that we are still food insecure? And still, it is predicted that the situation is not going to get any better unless drastic measures are actually taken. As a result, some are also relooking at the soils of our African farmers. Some of them, as we know, they have been heavily invested with fertilizers. We don't blame them. But to the extent that the return to the investments we make to our fertilizers still pose a very serious question. Then when will we increase production as well as productivity? So I'm going to share just a very short presentation that shows the link between agroecology and food security and nutrition. And this work is a joint project between my organization, BioVision Africa Trust, based in Nairobi, and the United States Mission to the African Union. We thought, let's look at a very rapid study that can look at 5 East African countries. Oops, sorry. Okay. Yeah, this is a very, I won't go into a lot of details, but it's a project that we have run in East Africa in line with the AU Year of Nutrition, so I won't go into a lot of details. But looking at how we can engage with the policymakers, and I'm glad some of them are also in this midst, to look at what we really need to do so that we can promote truly sustainable agriculture and food systems. So the work we did was work that looked at 5 countries in East Africa: Ethiopia, Kenya, Rwanda, Tanzania, and Uganda, with participants and experts from Millennium Institute of Washington, D.C. And we looked at the question of agroecology from various dimensions. And I will not go into the results of that. What is it that people understand by agroecology? And what is the resilience of agroecology vis-a-vis external input agriculture? What are the policies, drivers, and some of the constraints that limit adoption of agroecology? We do not want to look at conventional because we do understand that quite well. And using some of the insights from there, we came up with mental maps that are informed by the systems thinking. Today, someone actually mentioned this, and I was very much at home. Because what we are looking at in terms of food systems is very much akin to how we understand systems, how systems operate. And we looked at the question of how can agroecology contribute to nutrition in a world that is facing competitive force from, of course, the bigger sector that is pushing the use of chemical-based inputs, which I've said they have a role to play, but the role is also limited. So, just a few common things. I won't go a lot into the details, how agroecology contributes to food security and nutrition in terms of improving soil health, in terms of promoting diversity in systems and enterprises, all through to incomes, what we like to see at household level, and very importantly, how they contribute to the resilience building of our agriculture and food systems. And interestingly a bit, maybe I mentioned some of the points that also, from the 5 countries, people from different categories, farmers, researchers, practitioners, and some of the policy makers, looking at more of what is unique about agroecology. And I liked very much this morning when someone said nutrition should not be a function of monoculture, but good, stable nutrition should be a function of multiple enterprises, multiple crops. And on this continent, I know sometimes when we talk of cassava, sweet potatoes, and the others, people look at them as orphaned crops. But for me, I believe these are opportunity crops. And in Zambia yesterday, you heard the minister talk of maize. Everything's about maize. But I've been glad to see what is served in our meals also are some of the very nutritious foods that are neglected, but which are very fundamental to the food situation of the country. So these are some of the things that they mentioned. And here, just to, not for you to be reading text alone, looking at some of the agroecology practices being promoted, some of the agroecological products being traded in local markets. And now I briefly, Chair, look at quickly systems thinking. And I'll have 3 slides that I want to demonstrate how agroecology contributes to nutrition and food security. Basically, if you look at the work by Peter Senge, food systems thinking is a framework for seeing interrelationships rather than things, for seeing patterns rather than static snapshots. Meaning you look at a system with what are the components in that system and how are they interacting for the stability of that system. Now for this work, we've used what we call causal loop diagrams, which are important in explaining the relationships between the various elements of the system, and are important in giving us feedback, and some of this feedback are the ones that inform what actions in terms of policies, in terms of programs, should we engage. And again, for the purposes of looking at how agroecology contributes to climate change mitigation, nutrition, and food security, there are some points that we look at why we use systems thinking. It helps us to build a common consensus, and in this case, agroecology and its impacts, the trade-offs, and policies for scaling up. It also helps us to focus for identifying what data needs do we need to have. It also helps us to build a foundation for formulation and modeling of our work, because we want to see how do our systems operate in the short term and how will they operate in the long term. And using the concept of systems thinking, we are able to do that. And finally, this can then help us to delve more into policy insights and how to communicate this to various stakeholders for appropriate action. Now, very quickly, this is an example that we drew from what came out of interactive workshops with over 35 participants each from 5 countries in Eastern Africa. Now, I'm trying to look at the pointer here. But if you look at what policies do we need so that we can have farmers have a commitment to agroecology, there is a feedback loop between commitment by farmers to agroecological practices and if they are able to perceive the benefits in terms of nutrition and food security being contributed by those practices. And we see if there is that commitment, then it will lead to more of the farmland size being put under agroecological practices. And this could be in terms of crop diversity, because it's one of the most important aspects of agroecology, diversification of crop enterprises and livestock. It can also lead to less reliance on external inputs, especially chemical fertilizers, because for crop and livestock integration, and if well managed with some of the practices that we know could be sources for boosting the fertilizer status of the farm, then you can actually use less of chemical inputs. And also with agroecology, we end up having more soil quality and ecosystem services provided. Now, there is another loop, that's R2 if you see that. If you are able to increase crop diversity, and we have resilience to disease, pests, and climate change, then that is likely to increase average annual food production, as you can see. And it creates a positive relationship in the positive direction of home food availability, cash income, again, signaling more positive effects on nutrition and food security, and making the farmers be more committed. And if you look at the loop R3, that shows very much how the link between crop diversity and resilience to disease and pests and towards climate change takes place. It's another loop that is very important there. And finally, the loop number 4, it shows very clearly if we have vulnerability to price or input variability shocks reduced, as you can see with the negative sign, then we are likely to have increase in our overall farm production. So, and if you look at the soil quality and ecosystem services, these lead more to the benefits that we can see to the other sectors. Carbon sequestration, quality of water improved, and biodiversity. The things that we really would like to see within our agriculture and food systems. I have a quote here that just came from New York Times. Farmers are grappling with shocks that made fertilizer scarce and unaffordable, diminishing harvests, raising food prices, and spreading hunger. Dependence on vital products from dominant suppliers yields widespread danger when shocks emerge. This is from New York Times. We don't have to take it, but it shows how our own farming systems can be subjected to vulnerability and therefore underperformance if we are not prepared to have resilient features within our food systems. I'm just almost finishing. This is also another very good example of the perceived benefits, if you have policies that are actually showing what are the benefits we can get if we promote agroecology practices, again, it means you can actually have a very nice relationship where, if you look at R1, we reduce the use of chemical fertilizers. And if you are adopting agroecological practices, we delay to have negative effects by the agrochemical use, and meaning that we can actually improve our ecosystem services to agriculture. If we reduce, we may not necessarily eliminate. It would have been possible if we would, but we know in reality that is not possible. But can we reduce the use of chemical inputs and increase combination of practices that are able to build more fertility of the soil, as you can see very quickly here, and I'll be finishing, as I said, this is where it becomes even more clearer, that in terms of the policies or actions that can be undertaken to improve that benefit or the benefits as perceived by the farmers from agroecology, then we are looking at the connection with health, we are looking at the yields, we are looking at certification, meaning that you can actually standardize, put some standards, put some regulations. We are also looking at taxing chemical inputs. If you tax, then it means you are actually making it easier for farmers for the other alternative inputs. Moderator, as you can see with subsidies for agroecology, I believe it is important because this is one area that has been neglected, but if they are, that could be a contribution because it can reduce agroecology production cost. Now, what is important here, as you can see, we have 3 levels. In the red, the potential adopters would be like the conventional farmers, or farmers farming organically by default, as we say, is because they don't have the chemical inputs, so they don't use much inputs. Those are farmers by default. But then as they transition towards agroecology, then we'd like them to move and become agroecology farmers, meaning they use practices, technologies, innovations that not only keep the soils productive, but are also able to ensure that production, productivity, and the environment are safe. So we need to see how do we keep them in the green space. And that is now where we go back, what are the policy actions and drivers we need to consider. Mr. Chair, that this is the last one, I would say, for the diagramming. We know very well that as much as we promote agroecological practices, there is very stiff competition from the multinational world. And that is the truth. But we are saying that all of us, in some way, we need to recognize we cannot continue to depend exclusively on industrial-based fertilizers. You can just see what is happening within the geopolitics today. And that should be a red flag for us and look at what are the alternatives. Where can we also put some resources, but at the same time ensuring that issues of food security are addressed by our own resilient systems. So, Chair, to finish, we did this work, but we also said, this is simulation, with people thinking very seriously from practical contexts, but we also need data to be collected to inform this further analysis. And we have identified the kinds of data that we really need to get. Because through this, we can do the analysis we can, look at the trade-offs and synergies of the various systems, and look at then what do we need to do. And friends, for us to invest more in more resilient food systems. Thank you. I think I would say I would want to end there and say for sure from where we want to go, agroecology has a contribution. It has a contribution. The farmers who are keeping us having food on the table, some of them are actually practicing this. But if we do a little bit more to support them, in terms of training, in terms of education, and linking some of them to markets. And the last point becomes very important for us. What kind of standards would we then want to have for products that are produced under what would term as agroecological conditions? And I think this is an important area which can fit in very well in how then do we increase trade in agroecological products within this continent. It's a huge market, but we also know the issues of food security, as complex as they are, we need to look at systems that will really be truly resilient, sustainable, to ensure that we have safe, adequate food available to all of us. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, eminent panelists and keynote speaker. The way was opened when we had the head of Director of Research and Innovation give us the keynote. But before he gave us the keynote, Dr. Jololo, who is the head of Agriculture and Food Security from the AU, gave us the objectives of this session. And we're grateful for that. And Dr. Oluwale gave us insights on the importance of science, innovation, and research in enhancing food and nutrition security. And that was followed by Dr. Sukati, who gave us the picture of the current status of food and nutrition security. After that, we looked at the role of science and research in food security from our eminent speaker, Liz Costin. Then we also had the innovation for increased productivity and sustainable agriculture from Mr. Matthews. And to cap it all, we had the role of agroecology in nutrition. But he made one important statement. A stiff agroecological advancement would give us less dependence on external sources. Africa is rich, so there's a lot that we can tap from Africa. What I want to do now is to give opportunity to have interaction. There are thoughts that may have come your way. There are questions. I know coming from North Africa, my brother can't wait to speak. But the backbenchers, if you have something to say, please come forward so that you can use the microphone. So don't sit over there and give me 1 mile before you come. Come and sit by a microphone. So I'll give chance to my brother to speak first. And please come a bit closer so that you can give us your thoughts or any questions. Please, straight to the point. I've got some 5-10 minutes to play around.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Actually, you mentioned I'm from North Africa, which is right, but I'm from the African Union as well. So my name is Ahmed El-Mekas. I'm the head of the African Union Specialized Technical Office for Agricultural Research and Development, which is located in Burkina Faso. Before to start, I'd like to thank all the panelists because really I have learned from them much. And I need to emphasize about some points that have been raised and just add something more. The issue of strengthening the linkages among researchers, extensionists, and farmers is really important, as well as the issue of scientific policy interface. And this is what we are trying to do in our office, to strengthening the linkage between or among researchers, extensionists, and farmers, as well as the forum for scientific policy interface. This is what we are doing in our office in regular basis. The other issue, we have to revisit the allocated budget for agricultural research. Actually, one of the indicators under the commitment of ending hunger saying that 1% or at least 1%. Actually, we need to revisit it. And I'm inviting all of you to read our document that we have published last year, 2022, Investment in African Agricultural Research, because sometimes 1% could be less than the expectation of the agricultural center at national level. In some countries, is more than. So we have to have accurate figures, which you have a publication on that, and we have accurate index at national level, and we are going to put it in the, inshallah, coming PR with my colleague Sukati. I was in discussion with him, and I have guided him about our document, which we have developed with STFPRI last year, and hopefully if it will work in the next PR. The problem of the research and bring the attention of politicians. The outcome of research is long term. I cannot have research today and have the result tomorrow. Yes, I will say it in 1 minute. If I bring a fertilizer, seasonal impact, it will be clear, the production increase, but for research, it will take time. But no one brings the mindset of the politicians that fertilizer is outcome of research. Irrigation is outcome of research. This is one of the points. The issue of capacity building of the research institutions as well as the younger researchers is important. And at our own level in our office, we are making يعني annually training for African agricultural researchers based on South cooperation, which we have done that, and we have trained, I think, young researchers from 46 African member states. And you can see the outcome and the impact of our training is important. So we have to strengthen the capacity of young researchers, and they have to stop in this way. Thank you.
We had a hand at the back there before I come to the. Hey, I said 5 minutes. Please, don't worry, I'll come to you quickly. Please just go straight to the point so that I can give opportunity for the others. Okay, shoot away.
Thank you very much. I'm Samuel Mtambo from the Hunger Project Zambia. We appreciate the presentation. I just want to take you back to before we went for lunch. I had a question on the panelists, except that we didn't have time. One of the officers from the Ministry of Agriculture in Zambia did mention that there are a lot of research that is done in agriculture sector to ensure that we improve food security and nutrition. Now, he said the research that are done, they are not sure, is it demand-driven? That was the question that was given. So this takes us back to the issue of, community-led. It is important. I don't know how much we've researched to ensure the community that we are talking about, the small-scale farmers that we're talking about, understand what they're supposed to do, understand that they're the ones who are supposed to lead the process of their own development. For us, for me, this is where we feel we need to work hard to ensure that we have mindset change of our small-scale farmers. We work so much to try and do all what we can. But if our small-scale farmers feel like they are beneficiaries, that's why as Hunger Project Zambia, we are promoting, we are moving out from the word beneficiary to community partners. Because if they become community partners, they are supposed to play a role to end hunger and poverty. Otherwise, if we do not ensure that they understand the process, that they are supposed to lead the process of their own development, we work hard. When we are there, they will seem to be developing. Immediately we leave, they will stop.
Thank you very much. Okay, let's move. My sister, you're a latecomer. I'll come to you though. Yeah, have you got a microphone by you? If you don't have a microphone, who has got a microphone?
I have a microphone. I can talk.
Please, do you have a microphone there? Come. Okay, my sister, you talk. Don't worry, I'll come to you. I said stand by a microphone.
Can I talk?
Thank you, Chair. Okay. Is it me? Oh, yes. Thank you so much. I'm Emma Piri from Gender Division, Cabinet Office. My concern is I would like to know, how have you been collaborating in your respective countries with the ministry responsible for gender or women affairs and children? I submit.
So one of them would answer. Yeah, you came by the microphone. Quickly, please.
Okay, so my name is Chisala Walia, and I'm a Researcher Innovations Coordinator from the Zambia Research and Development Center. So my question goes to Professor Costin. So Professor, in your experience and research around food security in Africa, I just want to understand if you have identified any unique challenges in Africa's pursuit of food security that necessitate region-specific scientific approaches and research initiatives. If so, could you highlight some of these challenges and corresponding research strategies to address them effectively? Thank you.
Very much. Enough. Please, let me go this way. You are a latecomer. Yeah, my sister here, you, my brother.
Thank you, moderator. I had the hand before you pass it on.
Okay, I'll go ahead. Thank you very much, and thank you. Thank you, Professor. My name is Elizabeth Mudogo from Kenya. I work for an organization called Safaricom Sacco, previously been in a technology company called Safaricom, which is the biggest telecommunication company. And I go straight on so that I can be brief and also to support the question he was asking about gender and gender inclusivity and the role of the youth. And to my brother in the ministry in Zambia, I was very tickled when you mentioned the innovative practices like use of drones, which we have used in Kenya. We have used drones in the organization to be able to do the geomapping, to do the spraying, to be able to detect pests early enough and to be able to do intervention. It is something that works. When you talk about the soil testing, we have been able to use automation and digitization to be able to pick the soil tests, because for you to know whatever input you need to put, to be able to identify the quality of the pesticide that you need to put in, it's very critical at the first stage. When you talk about the satellite imaging and everything to do with mass production, and talking to the smallholder, it is something that we have put to test and did a pilot. However, one of the things that has made us slow down is because as much as we are talking to the smallholder farmer, specifically in the Kenyan scenario, we are not yet there in terms of the speed of delivery and the excitement that it brings along. Yes, they're beautiful things to have. I'd like to know, maybe in Zambia and in the African context, how ready are we to be able to accommodate some of these innovative products?
Thank you very much.
The need is there.
Yeah,
Yes,
enough.
thank you.
My brother at the back there, don't worry, I'll come to you. My time is really spent. My brother, yeah.
Thank you, Samuel Benin with IFPRI. So I have a fundamental question, is how do we influence discourse, decision-making, and resource allocation towards the foods that matter for Africa? My question is based because globally, the world relies on 6 crops, right? Wheat, corn, rice, sorghum, soybean, potatoes, and sugarcane. And all of these, you can look at it along the chain. They are fortified in various ways that address food and nutrition security. So what it means is that the research, innovation, etc., is all geared towards these six items globally. But for Africa, maybe except for corn, they don't compare to things like teff, millet, cassava, beans, which are important for food and nutrition security for Africa. If you look at the research funding, it is the unrestricted funding is declining. So what it means is that this bias is actually going to continue. And if you look at research being conducted, what it means is that in Africa, actually, if you look, it's mainly funded by ODA. So there is no way to think that we are doing science and research that matter for the crops in Africa, however you want to look at it. Even if we look at the data and statistics in the continent. Sorry, let me land, please. Data and statistics in Africa, things like cocoa, coffee, rubber, you find good information spanning so many 100 years, right? But these are also geared towards industrialization in the sources of ODA that funds these data collection systems. Look at the BR, for example. When we want data, it's missing on lots of things on production, manufacturing, food safety, the things that matter for us. Data on food and nutrition security outcomes, as Kati was presenting, yeah, nice. They look nice for, there's data for many years for Africa, but it's geared towards food aid coming to Africa. So a lot of the resource allocation and discourse is just skewed away from the things that matter for Africa. So fundamentally, from whatever angle that the presentations have occurred, I want to, we should think about how we can influence the resource allocation towards the foods that matter. And when I say foods, we have to think about it, value chains, food systems that are important. So I would like to hear what our panelists have.
Thank you very much. In fact, that was my 10 minutes. I was supposed to do a presentation that I sacrificed for you. And my 10 minutes is up. So what I want to do now is to go back to our panelists and then to have your 1-minute intervention, insights, and within that, I'll give you 10 more seconds just to answer the questions that have been asked. So we start with Matthews.
Thank you very much. So probably as I give my 1-minute intervention, I just wanted to just speak to what was raised, I think the examples from Kenya, where, it's been very difficult to probably scale up certain technologies and innovations that are good simply because maybe we are not ready. And I think there was a question that was raised to say, how ready are we to embrace most of these innovations and technologies? It is very true, because we've also seen that in Zambia would have, subsidy programs that are, very, very good. We had the e-voucher system where, recipients of, these subsidy programs are in remote parts of the country, but because the infrastructure was, or because these programs depended on infrastructure, that might not be in those places, we were forced to start scaling down. So I guess the call is that, even as we propose these innovations, we really need to make sure that we do works that would support innovations. And probably as I end, I just want to indicate that we really need to start rethinking how we move with our food systems agenda. We need to come to a point where we can produce more with less, and the use of research and development should take priority in our food systems transformations agenda in the countries. Thank you.
Thank you, David. Your 1 minute burning issue before you. Just 1 minute, please.
Yeah, thank you very much. There wasn't a very specific one, but I want to say, influencing policy. How do we do this? And influencing policy or policymakers also comes to the question of resource allocation. And I think having reliable data that can inform what key actions are we deriving from the data and the analysis we are doing, and therefore the recommendations we are making, that will really be very important. We have studies that have been done to look at the investment in research in conventional agriculture and some of the systems we are saying, like agroecology. We need to look at that. And for sure, it is a paltry allocation that goes to agroecology related work. So for me, I would recommend in future and not far from now, we start looking at to what extent are we investing in more sustainable systems. And finally, I had a slide here that looked at carbon sequestration and carbon emission. And the question would be, what systems would we really want to embrace that can help us sequester more carbon into the soil, because that is where the magic lies as being foundational, and then reduce carbon emissions. And we see that happening in more integrated, diverse, agroecology-based systems.
Thank you very much. Dr. Sukati, your 1 minute intervention.
Yes, thank you. Thank you so much, Professor. Maybe I will start by saying in my presentation, I was also presenting some health statistics, education statistics. So I notice here that we are agricultural experts, but we shouldn't remember that to be holistic, we need to implicate the health, the education and everything so that we are complete. On the question of innovation, it's extremely critical. FAO has come up with a specific science and innovative center to make sure that we are approaching our agri-food systems transformation using innovation. And just to say that innovation is not something that is out of this world that you are discovering the internet. Even innovative ways of financing, innovative ways of how we communicate and share information, it's just innovation, the quick wins. And then the third point I want to zero in on, as you look into the future, now you see that people are concerned about climate change. You will see that foods will now start to be labeled on how much footprint it was, is it organic? What will that do? It will shoot up the price of that food so that only the affluent people are going to afford it, At the end of the day, the food availability should be at the forefront. We are working very hard with FARA to promote our own traditional indigenous foods. The professor is here, he will agree with me. The last point, researching with the farmers. I was here in Mulungushi in 2016. I heard a farmer saying, do not research for us, research with us. The professors are coming. I'm so happy that they will be coming to talk to us now. They research to publish in high impact journal. If you are not a subject matter expert, you will never be able to understand what they are talking about. How do we demystify the information that is stuck in those journals and make sure it trickles down to farmers?
Thank you very much. Yeah, the it will trickle down, will come down from our glass houses. Now, the last but not the least is Professor Costin, before I get to the keynote. So, Prof.
Thank you very much. I first of all want to just make clear that there's 198 researchers that we currently produce per million people. So that's way below where we should be. The World Bank has given us the challenge of to produce 100,000 PhDs in 10 years. And our challenge is throughput, the sort of quality of the person coming into a master's, and then obviously finding funding. So now the challenge for us is to fast track them and then build from the PhDs to postdocs to senior research fellows into then some of the top rated scientists in the world. So that's the pathway we currently have. The research focus areas, that was actually the question that we now have identified for funding. So we're looking now at the ARISE #2 will now start. It's another 50 million euro funding. And with that, we'll build research centers for Africa. a few themes will be things such as food safety. We do not have a central national foods or African food safety program. We lack food safety policies in Africa. I know there's a lot currently happening, but the whole food safety landscape is fragmented from a regulatory point of view, from a diagnostic point of view, from both pesticide or mycotoxin or foodborne pathogens, just calibrating these results from all the different laboratories and doing metadata analysis and doing risk assessment. We just don't have the systems in place. So that's one priority for us. One Health is currently a big theme, and within One Health, obviously the shift is more on human health and animal health, but plant health and environment health is as important. And the big shift is now to antimicrobial resistance circulating in these systems, and we have no idea what is the profile in Africa. So that's another key area for us. The water crop food nexus, a very important area, and of course water security. You can have no food security unless you have water security. And then of course the AI, the big metadata analysis, big data, and doing of course a blockchain to link farmers directly with markets. And then I just want to say that AI has totally changed our landscape. Today they have a big, the first international conference in the UK around AI and the safety of it. And AI is a powerful tool. We've embraced it in academia, and we are challenging students to master it and manage it. But the discussion is not over. And I think the youth in Africa, they all have cell phones, and they all has the power to become knowledgeable and to enter these platforms, knowledge platforms.
Okay, thank you, Prof. Before I call the keynote speaker to give us a call of action, one thing is coming out clear, that we should identify partners. And if we look at Africa, there are 50 out of the 55 countries that belong to the Scaling Up Nutrition, and we are hoping that there will be a cross-sectorial network and collaborations, and we should be deliberate. It is also important that for science, we should be able to come up with data that is needed to monitor our food and nutrition indicators, and that's very important. And I call on our researchers to take advantage for the call and share our findings that can be usable and actionable. And I'm fortunate to know about African, which is Africa Catalyzing Actions for Nutrition. And what they are doing is going to academia, bringing the youth to work collaboratively to look at our needs, the community needs. And that is very important. The indigenous knowledge in seeking solutions to communities' food and nutrition problems, which is very meaningful. And unless we begin to work at that level, we would always be hitting at the top. We need to look at what are the needs within our communities. How can we begin to work collaboratively? Come down from your glass houses and let's begin to work to address the problems that confront our continent. It's now my privilege and pleasure to bring in our keynote speaker again, who will give us the call for action.
Thank you very much, Mr. Moderator, my good brother, the professor. And then distinguished ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for your patience, listening, and your different contribution. Without this call for action, we would have had another intellectual discussion, but we'll wonder what next should we do. And so I have 10 points call to give to all of us, and every one of us, including the policymakers that are amongst us. We have listened and we observe that the state of food security in Africa shows that we are still behind the entire globe. As such, concerted effort is needed to change this narrative. We need to invest in research and development because this is the fulcrum of the change. We need to invest in research around production system, around sustainable agriculture, around food fortification, Yeah, be it external food fortification or biological food fortification. We need to invest smartly into adaptable technology. Technologies, or let me say technologies in terms of mechanization that is climate smart. We have spoken here about agroecology and other nature-based approaches, but there are specific mechanization that fits in very well into this model, and we need to invest into it and develop it. The issues of ICT, robotics, the use of drone, artificial intelligence is becoming paramount around the globe, and it's already triggering a big change in other domains outside Africa. Every one of us, researchers, policymakers, technocrats, we need to tune our mind to this. We need to begin to have a change in mindset. We cannot afford to continue to demonize technology, lest the change leaves us behind. We need to continue to create awareness on the importance of adequate and balanced nutrition. Our studies revealed that adequate and balanced nutrition, food, are not necessarily very expensive. But in some instances, we have been made to believe that anything that is originated from Africa is poor, is for the poor, and it is not good. A change in mindset is really necessary to change this narrative. I want to also call our attention to the need for investment in proper education. This will trigger the change that we need. Education is not only for the young upcoming generation, but also for the old generation. And we need this effort, we need also to put effort into activities and action that will reduce brain drain. We must do things that will retain our intellectuals on the continent and make them to develop. A few years ago, we understood the agricultural development in Brazil, and we discovered that you hardly find Brazilian in the CG system. I asked someone in Embrapa, and he told me that the CG cannot even pay him as a scientist because Brazil pay more than the CG. Why should Africa intellectual earn a take-home pay that cannot take him home? He will rather move into another place where his livelihood will be sustained. So we need to retain our expert. The issue of infrastructural development or investment in infrastructure is paramount if we are going to change the narrative. Like we mentioned here, we need to invest strongly into irrigation and drainage. This is one area where climate change is affecting us dangerously, and we need to do that. Expand, possibly by 30 to 40%, the irrigable land in Africa. I want to say that this is a clear action to adaptation to climate change. We need to promote alternative food production system. This is an adaptation mechanism, and we really need to do it. And Africa needs not, I want to repeat, needs not to look at technology and say the technology is the devil. No. Food that are produced using this system, they are as clean, as healthy as food that are grown on the field. So think about hydroponics, aeroponics, aquaculture, cage fisheries, and so on and so forth. Number 6, we need to invest into nature-based approaches as a mitigation mechanism against the vagaries of climate change. My brother has spoken about agroecology so well today, but also there is the regenerative agriculture. Actually, there are 17 mechanisms like that exist. I will encourage you to read the HLPE 14, Agroecology and Other Innovations. I'm privileged to be one of the intellectuals that contributed to the development of that study. The issue of policies and investment in infrastructure, we cannot overemphasize it. I want to say that it is important that we sensitize our policymakers and investors to invest in food shock programs. I mean, we need to come up in our countries with functional food reserve. It will not only be useful when there is problem or food shortage or weather problem that leads to failure of crops, but every year we can use our grain reserve to moderate the prices of food in the market. The issues of maintaining our production asset is important. The Soil Initiative for Africa is coming up. It's an African Union and now done a part initiative. And this is a big one to help us maintain our soil. All of us need to give this program our huge support so that we maintain the production capacities of our soil. The vision for adapted crop and soil, FACTS, is also coming up. This is a program that is initiated by the Department of State of the United States in collaboration with FAO and African Union. I mean, this is looking at adapted commodity, or let me call them forgotten food. And that responds smartly to the question raised by my brother from IFPRI. We need to give our support to this. Let me close by saying that the change starts from you. The change starts from you. You need to say no to food waste on your table. You need to be intentional around that. Cook what you will eat, and don't say because you can afford it, then you throw it into the dustbin. Reserve what you did not finish, keep it and eat it at any other time, or give it out to those who will eat it. Then secondly, eat healthy food. If you eat healthy food, you will save the state of funds that is invested into health facility. I mean, let your children, let everyone around you eat. Eat indigenous food, okay? Let us all eat indigenous food. Thank you very much.
Thank you for the call of action. And with this, we bring our session to a close. Please, let's appreciate our panelists. Thank you. Thank you for your patience. We went over by 5 minutes. You were patient with us.
Colleagues, good afternoon. Just a quick housekeeping. Excuse me. A quick housekeeping. With one of the side events, we're supposed to have this room divided to accommodate two side events, but it became logistically difficult. So the side event on NIMES review is relocated to AG01. Down the passage where some of you had lunch this afternoon. Go down the passage and you turn to the right. It's next to the AG08, AG01 is also in the same way. So those of you that want to join to discuss and learn more about our NIMES and the RIPES, the NIMES are the National Agricultural Development Plans and the Regional Development Plans. Please make your way after tea to AG01. Thank you.
My colleagues, anyone interested to go to Value Chain Site event, I can guide all of you. So please follow me. I am here to go just to the side event of Value Chain of African Union. Thank you.
Yeah, good afternoon. All another announcement is that here we are going to have a side event on the Gender, Climate Change and Agriculture Support Program, where we are showcasing the impact of that program. Thank you.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. We'll be starting shortly as soon as all the speakers are in the room. Thank you. Please give us 2 or 3 minutes. We'll be starting shortly. Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, may we kindly ask that you move to the front, if you may, please, such that we fill in the seats at the front. If you're at the back, would you mind, please, just moving a little bit closer? Thank you. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you, thank you. I know we enjoyed our nsima, our fish, our kapenta, our bream, our chikanda, our impwa, and whatnot. So now it's time to put all that nutrition that we received to good use. Welcome to this important session on unpacking the Gender, Climate Change, and Agriculture Support Program run by the African Union Development Agency and its partners. Ladies and gentlemen, as we all know, and as we've heard this whole time while we've been here, we're being reminded that smallholder farmers are actually at the heart of feeding us as a continent. Smallholder farmers are the reason why we're here, because they're the ones who fed us this lunch that I'm just talking about. And then this program, ladies and gentlemen, it puts smallholder farmers at the heart of what we do. And moreover, it also resonates with me personally because its focus is actually on women smallholder farmers. Despite the efforts, ladies and gentlemen, that we've been making in agriculture and in CAADP, we're also faced with a big challenge, that of climate change. Climate change is having a significant impact on agriculture and food security as a result of the increased prevalence of extreme events and increased unpredictability of weather patterns. Smallholder women farmers are therefore affected disproportionately and adversely by the impacts of climate change because of their limited adaptive capacity and high levels of vulnerability. So, ladies and gentlemen, what are we doing about this? My name is Mwanja Nganjo. I'll be your facilitator this afternoon. It's an honor and a pleasure for me to be with you this afternoon because actually the many hats that I wear, one of them includes gender. I've got a degree in gender, which I've never technically put to use. So it's an honor and a privilege for me this afternoon to delve into this program with you all and look at the impact that AUDN NEPAD is making in this important sector. The Gender, Climate Change, and Agriculture Support Program of the AUDN NEPAD has got 5 participating countries. These are Cameroon, Ethiopia, Malawi, Niger, and Rwanda. All of them have got projects that they're implementing at a country level, and with in different contexts, we're having different challenges and different results, which will be unpacked this afternoon. The results from the first implementation are very successful, although, of course, they're coupled with different challenges, but all of the work that is being undertaken is feeding into Africa's Agenda 2063, as well as the global SDGs. The reason why we're here this afternoon, distinguished participants, ladies and gentlemen, is threefold. One, would like to create a greater awareness of this important work in the area of gender, climate change, and agriculture support. And secondly, would like to highlight some of the successes and challenges that we've had so far in implementing this program in 5 countries. And lastly, and most importantly, our distinguished guests were here also. What brings us together also is resource mobilization for phase 2 of this program. Without taking too much of your time, I'm going to run through the agenda for this afternoon. Following these opening introductory remarks, we're going to have a brief presentation on the GCAS program, and the one who will make the presentation is the head of the program, Mrs. Edna Kalima, the program lead of GCASP at African Union Development Agency, NEPAD. This will be followed by a documentary that Edna and her team have put together for us to see what's happening on the ground at country level. And then we've got a panel discussion on the impact of the program. The panel, ladies and gentlemen, will be moderated by the director at AUDN NEPAD for Agriculture, Food Security, and Environmental Sustainability, Mrs. Esterine Fotabong. And the panelists will include Mr. Odd Arnesen, Regional Food Security Envoy from Norway, Dr. Niger Thomas, coming all the way from Cameroon. She's the CEO of AMEF and the president of the Southwest Women and Youth Agribusiness Network. And also in the room, we have Mrs. Grace Chimwemwe Hussein from Malawi. Mrs. Hussein is from the Ministry of Gender, Children, Disability, and Social Welfare. And then, of course, we can't have you just sitting here while we're talking to ourselves. We would like to have also some input from the floor and feedback on what will be presented to you. And then we're going to call it a day with some closing remarks from our director. Mrs. Kalima, are you ready for the presentation on the program? Over to you.
Good afternoon, all. Thank you, Mwanja, for that. It's a brief presentation of the GCAS. We have done so much, but we have squeezed this into 10 minutes, so bear with us. Some of the things that I may not say here, you'll find them in the reports that if you ask for them, we can give you. And we also have given out the catalog. It's the second catalog we have produced for women in agribusiness. Okay, so I'm going to talk briefly about the Gender Climate Change and Agriculture Support Program of the African Union Development Agency, NEPAD. We are going to showcase the impact that this program has done in our continent. The objective of this program is basically to support women smallholder farmers. And these women smallholder farmers, we are supporting them to better cope with the climate change effects and climate change variability. And we have also supported them in enhancing their economic empowerment within the agricultural sector. So the NEPAD agency recognized the challenges that women smallholder farmers have. And there are so many challenges, including the challenge of climate change. And we realize that with those challenges, women are not forging ahead. They are doing so much. And we all know that African women do so much, a lot in the agriculture sector. But you see the results, you find that it's like things are not working. So realizing that, we came up with this program called the Gender Climate Change Agriculture Support Program. This program has been supported by NORAD, and we really want to say thank you so much, NORAD, for the support that you have given to the Gender Climate Change and Agriculture Support Program. So we had consultations in the countries. So far, we have 5 countries that we have implemented this program in. So there is Cameroon, there is Malawi, Ethiopia, Niger, and Rwanda. So these consultations were done in each of these countries. And we realized that there was a lot of information being given to us by the women smallholder farmers. We took a multi-stakeholder approach where different people, different organizations, women smallholders themselves, we had the academia, the NGOs, the private sector, the governments, all of them came for these consultations where we were able to talk about the issues that women farmers were meeting. So through those consultations, we came up with the intervention areas where we operate on this program. So the intervention areas, can I please come back to the first slide? Yes. So there are 4 intervention areas, as you can see. There is the policy and institutional intervention area, and then there's the capacity building of women smallholder farmers, creation of women platforms, and upscaling innovative projects. So let me just briefly talk about this. When we're talking the policy and institutional gaps, we're talking about closing those gaps that are there in policies. For example, the policies to do with agriculture and environment, the gaps that they have where women's concerns are not included. So we looked at those gaps and we reviewed the policies to make sure that the concerns of women are included. even in institutions, for example, the institutions, the government institutions, the Ministry of Gender, which is the host of this program. We also looked into capacity issues in those ministries. Now, talking about capacity building of women smallholder farmers, here we're talking about the access that we gave to women, access in terms of input, access in terms of resources, access in terms of markets, and the technologies that we gave to them. And that also included trainings, the different trainings that women smallholder farmers needed. And just to include on that is what we call the Conference for Women in Agribusiness. This is a big event. It's a big platform that we always have where women smallholder farmers come and actually share experiences. They share what they are doing in terms of agriculture and agribusiness. And in that conference, we have policy dialogues. We have segments on trainings as well. We have field visits. And more importantly, we also have exhibitions where they come and exhibit their products. And then coming to creation of women platforms, this is at national level, basically, where we create platforms for women where the platforms don't exist. And then where they exist, we aim at strengthening those platforms. And then it's the upscaling of innovative projects. There are so many projects that have happened in those 5 countries. Each country basically had about 4 projects. So in total, we had like 20 projects that were implemented in the 5 countries. Next slide, please. Okay, so this is just to show you some of the projects that we have had in the GCAS countries. I didn't specify which one is from which country, because there were, as I indicated, there were 20 projects. So you find that we had all these projects where we had greenhouses, where we planted different vegetables, high-value crops. You can see the tomatoes, you can see the cabbages. We had kitchen gardens in various communities. We had distribution of animals like goats and sheep. That happened in Niger as well as Ethiopia. We had also manure making. We can see there the top one where we are making a manure called Amof, that's Cameroon. There is another manure making here in Rwanda. And then we also had irrigation where we had different irrigation systems. There was sprinkler irrigation happening, drip irrigation happening. And then also we had the issues of selling points where after harvesting all that, we had selling points in Malawi, we had selling points in Rwanda. And then we're talking about the agribusiness side, where we actually made sure that we are reducing post-harvest losses. Cameroon actually had a dryer that they worked out. And then those are the products that came out from there. And it is even working until now, where even women come and dry their products from that and go sell. So these are some of the projects we have had in the countries within the GCAS program. So just to mention that, because I talked about the Conference for Women in Agribusiness, FAO and GIZ also supported us on the activities relating to the conference in agribusiness, and we are grateful for that. Next slide, please. All right, so the impact has been enormous, although it has been coupled with several challenges. I will not highlight the challenges, like speaking to them one by one, but just to mention that the main challenge that we encountered was the issue of resources. So we had to downscale the projects because the resources couldn't carry the planned activities and the planned projects that we had. So basically, this is the impact that we have seen with the resources that we had and the projects that we did on the ground. we have seen improved food nutrition and security. Women who have been beneficiaries of these projects can testify that their lives were made easier when they got into these projects. They had improved food and nutrition. They also had increased incomes where they were able to use those incomes to help even the family, pay school fees, buy clothes, books for the children. And there is, as we can see, increased resilience in that regard. There was improved climate smart agriculture practices because they were engaged into different climate smart agriculture technologies. And then we also had seen women talking, the platforms that we created, women who would never say anything, but they were able to amplify their voices and indicate what they are going through, indicate what they really see as need and solutions to the issues of food insecurity. So that helped them actually even to make decisions on the incomes that they were gaining. And then we also had improved access to agriculture imports because other projects within, they were able to lend money to the women. There were some revolving funds going around and the women were able to have agriculture inputs, they were able to be connected to markets. We have seen in that slide the selling points. That's what happened. And then within the ministries, I indicated earlier that we are also looking into issues of capacities. So you could see that within, there were strengthened coordination mechanisms within the gender ministries. Yeah, so I think because of time, let me stop there. Next slide, please. Thank you very much, Siyabonga. Merci beaucoup.
Thank you very much, Edna. That was very insightful, and we've been talking about results. CAADP is all about implementation, and I think you will agree with me that GCASP is one of the programs that is actually showing results at the ground level as well. Without taking too much of your time, I'm holding myself back. I've got a lot to say, but I'll hold myself back. Millicent and the technical team, are you ready with the documentary? Please beam it if you can. Thank you. While we're waiting for the video to be uploaded, I just want to add that this program for me is also important because it also brings women together from across the continent to come into those learning events and knowledge exchange platforms, capacitating women across the continent. So it does speak to regional integration as well. Thank you.
The NEPAD agency made the smart decision to say, while we were supporting the negotiators to come up with the Paris Agreement on climate change, we recognized that climate change was already having significant impact at the level of our communities. And therefore, a decision to support our communities, particularly women smallholder farmers who were at the front line of farming in our countries, was therefore given a priority.
Beneath the vast African skies, a story of hope and transformation unfolds. A tale of women farmers standing strong against the changing winds of time. Agriculture, the heartbeat of our lands, is facing unprecedented challenges. A tale of decline, a tale of crisis, echoing through our economies and societies. The consequences are dire. Over-extraction of resources, a chorus of greenhouse gases, and yields that barely meet the needs of our growing populations. The burdens of this crisis weighs heavily on our smallholder farmers, especially our women, strong, resilient pillars of our communities, but often overlooked and underserved. In the rural expanses, the vicious cycle of old norms and cultural practices thrive. As men opt for cash crops and the alternative urban dream, women shoulder the farm and family. A migration of men that births shifts tears the fabric of our societies and breeds gender disparities. Yet from these challenges, a movement emerged, a movement that united women, science and tradition, a movement called the Gender Climate Change Agriculture Support Program, a beacon of change ignited by the African Union Development Agency, NEPAD, and NORAD. GCASP aims to address the gender-specific impacts of climate change on African agriculture. It also has a platform for women in agribusiness to interact and share experiences, challenges, and lessons on a range of issues, including climate change and agripreneurship.
The Gender Climate Change and Agriculture Support Program of the AUD and NEPAD is a flagship program that actually supports women, smallholder farmers, and other vulnerable groups of people in dealing with the effects of climate change and climate variability. So it helps them to cope with these effects of climate change and climate variability. It also empowers them in their agricultural economic activities.
The GCASP journey was forged through passion, resilience, and strategy. 4 pillars of change were built: policy transformation, capacity empowerment, platforms for unity, and the seed of innovation. GCASP is just one example of how African women are leading the way in adapting to climate change and building more sustainable food systems. With their resilience, creativity, and dedication, they are showing us that a more equitable and sustainable future is possible. Various initiatives as well as activities on the ground were carried out during the first stage of implementation in 5 countries, and more countries await their seeds of change.
As the director of AUD and NEPAD, and as an individual, I strongly believe that capacitating and empowering women and youth is critical for the economic development and transformation of our countries and our continent as a whole. We cannot, it just it's smart politics, it's smart economics not to leave out 52% of your population, that is the female population of the continent, as well as, the story of our demographic dividends in a continent where we are, it's a youthful population. Again, it only makes sense to do interventions that empower and capacitate these 2 population groups of our continent.
In Cameroon, priority was given to construction and use of improved stoves, production of organic fertilizer, AMOF, post-harvest handling, and preservation by drying fruits and vegetables, drip irrigation, as well as training of women in urban agriculture. In Malawi, priority was to climate-smart technologies, including greenhouse vegetable growing and tree planting, production and use of energy-saving technologies, farmer-based technologies, business management, and marketing.
GCASP program was a very good project. But what I could point at is maybe the amount of resources. We need to expand on that one. Because when you implement a project, it should leave an indelible mark so that people can appreciate and say that we were at this level, now we are at this level. So the previous GCASP project, I think it ended when things had not reached at the climax. So it was like people being left in suspense and not knowing what to do. And in this case, more people will be complaining that the project has neglected us. But let's move with them and leave them at a stage whereby they should be able to walk on their own.
In Rwanda, Priority was to solar energy for irrigation, capacity building on access to finance, and post-harvest handling with projects on hermetic storage, cooling rooms, and refrigeration and marketing.
Those savings that they have been doing, they managed to buy a plot of land. Here we have 1 hectare of land, and also they have another 1 hectare of land that they rent for agricultural purposes. Through savings also, they managed to allow those cooperative members ask for just small loans for off-farm activities and businesses, small businesses, off-farm businesses.
In Niger, the main focus was on techniques for processing and preserving agricultural, forestry, pastoral, and fisheries products. This included methods for fattening and raising small and large ruminants, as well as manufacturing processes for cosmetic products.
Dans la région de Tillabéri, il y a le projet site maraîcher. Il y a un site maraîcher qui a été exploité par les femmes, 100 femmes qui ont exploité le site maraîcher. Et ensuite, il y a eu une opération le deuxième projet a concerné le levage des caprins, c'est des moutons et brebis, donc que l'ONG a placé au niveau des femmes pour le levage. Au niveau de la région de Tawa, il y a aussi un site maraîcher où les femmes, 50 femmes constituées en groupement féminin exploitent. Le site, chaque site fait 2 hectares. 2 hectares et à Tawa et à Tillabéri. Maintenant aussi, il y a une opération dans la région de Tawa, il y a eu l'opération élevage aussi, plus des équipements d'allègement des tâches, un moulin et des cortiqueurs placés auprès des femmes pour alléger leurs tâches. Et les femmes ont bien apprécié les résultats de ces projets. Et leurs revenus ont augmenté et leurs tâches également ont été allégées.
In Ethiopia, the emphasis was on climate-smart agriculture techniques like composting, permaculture gardening, and ring basin infiltration, RIP. Additionally, it encompassed orchard development, the introduction of fuel-efficient stoves, solar lanterns, and the promotion of high-performing animal breeds. The program also provided training in leadership, value addition, entrepreneurship, savings and credit management, as well as support for business startups. Training sessions were not just lessons, but keys to unlock a brighter future, focused on increasing women farmers' capacity through several prioritized training and on climate-smart agriculture, CSA, innovations and practices. The outcomes of this implementation were quite effective, despite some hurdles such as inadequate finance. Year after year, the GCASP conference became a sanctuary for minds to collide, dreams to birth, and solutions to flourish, a convergence of diverse stories and shared aspirations. With the GCASP, hope was sown, resilience was harvested. The vision aligned with the African Union Agenda 2063, a roadmap towards a united, thriving continent.
My name is Jean Muowo. I'm coming from Malawi, and I am a woman, a farmer. I do farming, a lot of things. Some of them are sugar beans, groundnuts, soya beans. We are a group of women, about 36 people, and our name is Bolelo Sepa Group. What inspired me is when I was farming, at first I didn't know that farming is also a business. So when I started it, I was interested in doing this farming and doing as a business so that I should feed my family, I should provide needs to my children and relatives. So when I do sell this one, it's when I find money, so my life is easy. Young ladies who are hearing me, if you have got a plan, don't give up. Everything starts little by little, but focus on your goal. So don't give up.
And so the story continues. A story of unity, growth, and nurturing. The Gender Climate Change Agriculture.
Thank you very much. My apologies, I had to stop there because the stories are just too numerous. We'll spend the whole night here. And apologies to have to cut the video short. Ladies and gentlemen, two words have been resonating with me this afternoon, sitting in this event on the GCASP. They're resilience and impact. They keep on resonating with me. And like I said, it's one thing for us to operate at a policy level. Meanwhile, people are asking for results on the ground. So the whole reason why we're here this afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, is while we're showcasing the impact of this program, is also to think about how we can reach out by mobilizing ourselves and our resources to reach out to more beneficiaries on the ground. Ladies and gentlemen, we've come to the panel discussion for this event this afternoon. I'd like to call to the floor, please, Mrs. Estherine Fortabong, Director for Agriculture, Food Security and Environmental Sustainability. She's going to moderate the panel discussion. And I would also like to call to the front, please, Mr. Odd Anderson from Norway. Next up, I would like to call Dr. Niger Thomas, who never fails us, all the way from Cameroon, Dr. Niger Thomas. And we've also got Grace, Mrs. Grace Hussein from Malawi. A big hand to the panelists.
One, two.
Thank you, Madam Moderator, and thank you, Edna, for the presentation and that beautiful video that we just saw. I really feel like all the participants at this conference had the opportunity to watch that video because I think it's really what we have been talking about. Getting on the ground, supporting the farmers, and getting results. And that little resources can go a long way to really empower our women smallholder farmers. And I'm feeling a bit nostalgic, and I'm not sure whether it's the right place to do it here, because when we have our Women in Agribusiness Forum, there is energy in the room. And I'm looking at Dr. Niger Thomas, who always lead the women and the men who are with us to bring more energy. We have what I would call the GCAP anthem that we do sing every time we meet. All these women across the continent will chant it and sing and just engage among themselves. Is this platform somewhere that we can do this? I'm seeing top up. I'm seeing top up because we have this, what we think, what is it? African women, we are shaping the continent. And I think it's not, we shouldn't just, it's not just fun, it's fun, but it's a deep message that speaks to the critical role that women smallholder farmers have in providing food, and nutritious food for their children and earning incomes that goes a long way in educating your children, in taking care of the health requirements of their children, in doing all sorts of things within their families and their communities. So, but I don't see the men here, Sister Maggie. I think we should still do it. Now, the few women who are here.
Wow, good evening, everybody. Good evening. Are we alive in the hall? African women are strong, isn't it? And of course, the African women cannot go without the strong men by their side. Am I right? And so, African women are shaping the continent. And as they shape the continent, they keep themselves alive by shaking. Am I right? Okay, so let's stand on our feet. We're going to shake a little bit before we get into real business. Women are shaping the continent. Women are shaping the continent. African women shaping the continent. Women are shaping the continent. Shake, shake, shake. Are we there? Are we together? Okay, let's take it hot. Women are shaping the continent. Women are shaping the continent. African women shaping the continent. Women are shaping the continent. Shake, shake, shake. Some people's back, even though I'm so old and I'm still at the G-caps, I can see shake better than some young people. Hey, Madam Esther, what do you think? Women are shaking the continent. Women are shaping the continent. African women shaping the continent. Women are shaping the continent. Shake, shake, shake. Women are shaking the continent. Women are shaping the continent. African women shaping the continent. Women are shaking the continent. Shake, shake, shake. Shake, shake, shake. Shake, shake, shake. Are we together? Wow. We'll keep shaking and shaping.
That was beautiful. Now we can say we are celebrating 20 years of CAADP implementation. And I really wonder what this continent would be without African women. Really, in terms of the subject matter we are discussing here, of agricultural and food system transformation of our continent, you have just had a small taste of that energy that we bring to what they do. So thank you so much, Dr. Nigel Thomas, for leading this appreciation of African women and bringing that torch that we have so much needed the last 2 days as we have celebrated the African Food and Nutrition Security Day and CAADP at 20. So after that beautiful redemption, let's get into our panel. And we've seen what Enna presented. I just would like us to have a conversation with my three able panelists here. I think Mwanja had already called on the panelists. We'll start, we have Mr. Odd Anderson, that I really want to thank him personally, and through him, the government of Norway, for the wonderful support and continuous commitment that Norway has shown through NORAD in supporting agriculture, climate change in the continent, and in particular this program of empowering women smallholder farmers. Dr. Nigel Thomas needs no introduction anymore on what you've seen today, but of her knowledge and exemplary work that she does in Cameroon. I've been doing over the years, training young people in the university, but driving policy change in the Ministry of Women Empowerment in Cameroon. And of course, Mrs. Grace Chimwemwe, who is also in the Ministry of Gender, Children, Disability, and Social Welfare in Malawi. She also has been a steadfast and committed person in this process of the implementation of GCAPS. So let me start with Dr. Niger Thomas and just talk to us. You were very much involved in the implementation of GCAPS in Cameroon. What impact did this program have on women smallholders in your country?
Once more, good evening, everybody. Yes, firstly, permit me thank the organizers for getting me once more into this panel. It's always a pleasure, and I would like to salute the dynamism, persistence, and continuous efforts of the AUD and the PATS team with his able head, Madame Estherine, and our able generals, Edna, and the others. I salute you people. Your dynamism has kept us going. I joined the GCAPS team in 2012 at its first inception meeting in Cameroon. And then I represented the Minister of Gender and as Director for Economic Empowerment of Women and the Family. Later, I became the coordinator of the program for Cameroon, the Cameroon GCAPS. At my retirement, I'm a senior citizen. You see me seated here like this. So I also acted as a consultant, the GCAPS consultant for Cameroon. It has always been a pleasure. And I want to say that my experience working women at all levels as a gender expert, university lecturer, researcher, grassroots mobilizer, I consider smallholder women as a critical mass that attention must be paid to if security and nutrition must be guaranteed on the African continent. So far, permit me highlight 4 to 5 points of lessons learned, best practices, or call it impacts on the ground, which I experienced. A lot has already been said through documentary, ethnic presentation. But one of the major impacts which I saw was that the identification of women-led civil society organizations in the implementation of the GCAPS in Cameroon. When we consider the fact that this category of women CSO are hardly considered as potential partners in project implementation, the critical identification of these people built capacities, and it gave women the opportunity to participate in decision-making, especially with regards to climate change, mitigation, and adaptation. And I saw it on the board, the issue of opportunities and decision-making, it came out on the board. Secondly, the possibility, another impact was the possibility of moving women smallholder farmers up on the ladder of agriculture value chain. It was quite evident during the GCAPS implementation. Throughout implementation by all the 4 implementation groups in Cameroon, the importance of value chain was highlighted. And it was clear that women have the potentials. They have the potentials and the resources to grow in it if they are given the means. Now, another impact, which was capital in Cameroon, was that the GCAPS led to the formalization of women's groups. Most of the time, their groups, they operate informally, but the GCAPS were able to legalize, formalize so many groups who moved from just informal operation to cooperatives. Women were formed into cooperatives, and their visibility became evident. By being formally recognized, they could access other opportunities in order to increase their businesses. Also, this led, I want to say that GCAPS had a baby born in Cameroon. You know, they were able to create as one organization, the Southwest Women and Youth Agribusiness Network. It's a baby of the GCAPS. Because of the GCAPS, 6 districts or divisions, as we call it, were able to come together to work together in a synergy and
to exchange experience on climate change, which was never the case. Everybody operates in their little corner. And I want to say that up till now, that organization is still in operation. And they were able to, the women who participated in the implementation program benefited from seed capital. After all the trainings, this particular regional network was able to give seed capital to women. Some were restituted, some went into innovative practices of what they learned through the capacity building trainings that were organized, prioritized training that were organized through the GCAPS. So this was a big thing for us in Cameroon. This led, like I said, some of them are now producing the fertilizer. Like some people were talking of, like the last panel we just had. I remember, is it Frank? They talk of buying fertilizers. And I remember that through the GCAPS, women were trained on producing organic fertilizer. And right now, I still have groups who are producing organic fertilizer and using their farms. I remember when they had the seed capital, this group had its meeting and everybody came together. They were able to explain what they did with it, showed pictures of what they produced. And to be honest, the production, the maize, the pepper, the vegetable, the production was enormous and wonderful. So why go chemical when you can train women to produce their own? And it's cheaper for them. And the material is within their reach. So this is some of the benefits of the GCAPS. Also, one other point, maybe the fifth last point concerning, there are lots of impacts. But one other one I want to raise is the fact that the GCAPS led to the organization of synergies for income generation. In one of the districts, one of the implementation partners carried out what they call the school field experience. The school field experience in growing watermelon through drip irrigation. It was portrayed on the board when we saw the pictures. Now, this school field experience, they had the GCAPS gave the grants that were given. They had equipment. You saw it, in fact, it was there. The drip irrigation with all the tankers and all the machines that we connected. But after this project ended, the school field experience, women were gathering in the field. They had a big hectares of farm to produce watermelon. They studied there. They learned everything, the technology on the field. They produced, they sold watermelon in large quantity. It was a come and see in Cameroon when vehicles are passing by the road. We never knew women could do that. Now, what happened? After the implementation, this first phase, the women were able to, they realized that individually, they could not get those equipment. So they organized themselves in little synergies of 3 to 5, and they look for a piece of land. One of them will have a piece of land, and they continue producing their watermelon. And of course, these watermelon grain synergies, they have served as a means of sustainability for the organization. So, not to take too much time, since we don't have much time, these are there are too many, especially what I lived, because I lived it, I experienced it, I translate the theories I know from the classroom, from as a professor, to the field. I'm right there with the women. And I can tell you, I can go on and on and on. Thank you very much, Madam Esther.
Thank you so much, Dr. Nija Thomas. Wonderful, wonderful results from that project. Let me ask Madam Grace, also, your experience on the GCAPS implementation.
You can use this. Let me give it so far. It's not okay. This one.
Thank you so much, moderator, and thank you, the organizers, for recognizing me to be at this panel, and all the delegates present here. As for Malawi, has been one of the GCAPS beneficiaries, and Malawi has made remarkable progress in implementing the project since inception. The project, as it was illustrated by the overview which was made, it had the 4 sub-programs. And in Malawi, for the first sub-program, which is closing policy gap and institution,
There was improved coordination on gender issues through gender technical working groups, whereby GCASP facilitated the implementation of establishment of women smallholder farmers platforms, which participated at local council technical working groups, and also women have been given quotas at council level in terms of representation in the village development committees and also area development committees. And for the second sub-component of the GCASP on the capacity building, the GCASP improved capacities of women smallholder farmers, as it was also pointed out by Dr. Naisha, that also in Malawi, the same thing happened, that women were also trained on climate change trainings and also group dynamics, enterprise development, and also on issues of farmer field schools. And also there was improved farming practices, and some women in the impact districts also planted trees. In the north, they planted indigenous trees, and in the south, they planted fruit trees. And also, women were empowered to demand accurate meteorological information from the meteorological offices, because this is their right. They have to know about the seasons, as we are talking about issues of climate change. So the GCASP project capacitated the women to have the voice to request for information on the accurate meteorological information. And also women in Malawi were also trained on issues of manure making, as it is also in these other GCASP countries. And also groups were trained in making fuel-efficient cookstoves and also brigades, as we are aware that issues of climate change makes also it difficult for women to find firewood. So this project capacitated the women to make brigades for energy. And also women have been empowered to form groups. Before the project, the women were working individually, but now with the onset of this project, we found that women were organized in cooperatives, and also they were provided trainings on how to run these cooperatives. And on the third sub-program on creation and strengthening of women-led platforms, women have been empowered in Malawi to have a voice in local councils, as I already mentioned. And these women in Machinga district, one of the impact districts, have formed a platform on climate action network. And the government has formed a national platform, and now we are in the process of forming district platforms for women in climate action. And lastly, on scaling up on innovation and best practices, the project has made it possible to integrate gender in mainstream agriculture activity projects. In Malawi, we have projects like Project for Rural Education and Development, and in short, we call it PRIDE, in the Ministry of Agriculture. And in this project, the GCAS project has assisted the women to have that power to be in committees and also to take leadership positions in this project. And also, the women have been trained on using pest and disease and drought-tolerant crops such as bananas and also sweet potatoes, cassava. So all these, there are so many as they were shown in the overview. So because of time, this is what I can say at the meantime. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Grace, for sharing the Malawi experience and the impact of GCAP's implementation in the country. So, Mr. Anderson, the special envoy of the Norwegian Foreign Ministry to this region, You have heard from the countries, you've seen the videos of the impact of GCAPS to the country. You were there at the inception. And as I mentioned, the support of NORAD has been much appreciated. Maybe you can just speak to us your appreciation of this program and of the thinking from NORAD on support on initiatives like this.
Thank you, Estrin, and thank you for inviting me up here. I'm honored, and I feel really energized. I mean, I've been to these panels here now with no gender balance and no energy. So I really recommend that we have the gender balance in these panel debates. But jokes aside, I mean, this is serious business. This is serious business for Africa and Africa's future. We know that women who contribute a majority of the labor in agriculture is not getting the fair share. And we see from statistics that women that have least access to resources, information, perform much less than men for no obvious reason. 30% less than men in the same farming system. This is actually not acceptable. And that's why it's so good to see the success stories, because we can come up with all these type of depressing statistics, but we are looking for those options and opportunities and that energy that can change this. So GCAPS is really something close to our hearts, and my colleagues in NORAD has really been proud of this program. You know, sometimes we work on sector programs and sector reviews, and we miss those parts that really that showcases that things are happening. In the big statistics, these things often get lost. So that's why it's important to have these programs. On the continental scale, they are small, but they really visualizes what is possible to achieve. From the Norwegian side, we take this very seriously, and in our approach now to programs, 50% of all programs we support should have gender aspects, gender objectives as a major, well, gender as a major objective, women's role in agriculture. So we also have to put in structures that actually makes us as bureaucrats act on this. And I could also refer to that the Committee of Food Security of the UN Food Security Conference last week, or is it this week, CFS, is discussing what is, I think, necessary to bring on board, and that is data on gender in agriculture. And I think it's very late to come up with that discussion, because we know very little about gender division and gender in agriculture in Africa. So it's coming very late, but I think that's something we as Norway will pursue. We need to know to act. And then I would like to just have a personal story from Zambia, not so far from Lusaka, that really showcase the innovations coming through women. And I'm a very fond believer in conservation agriculture, minimum tillage, etc. I do practice it myself. But these are new farming technologies, innovations that takes the time to adopt. And we had a big program here, and when we saw it displayed, and BBC was showcasing this new farming technology, and they presented this guy, this husband, who was the poster boy for conservation agriculture. And we went there with ministers and dignitaries, and he explained, oh, this marvelous harvests, I've done this, and we shifted the cultivation. And then one person asked, but who actually made the change? Was it you? And then it was sort of, no, it was actually my wife who attended some training because she was a bit tired of doing the old way. So she had been going for this training, and he didn't really believe it. So he gave her a bit of the land over there to try out. And she got more and more because she was performing much better than him, And in the end, he just said, okay, let's do the whole land. And then he took, of course, all the credit for this. And I've seen it so many times, and I've been living and traveling a lot in the rural areas in Zambia, that women are change makers because they feel the burden. And if they're given an opportunity, they will change the system. But very often they are not given the opportunity. So women as innovators, change makers, should never ever be underestimated. So I'm very happy that we were able to support this program, and I really feel energized, and I hope that you can continue this type of networks, and you have champions. Nothing happens without champions. So I really hope and congratulate that you will continue this good work, and congratulate you with what you have achieved on. It's limited resources, but it's impressive what you have done. So I know also, Estrin, that this is a personal commitment from your side. So thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Od, for that sharing with us your views on the important innovation and just capturing the energy that women have. I think the key word is that women are change makers, and given the opportunities, they can do a lot. So we should continue, and it's encouraging. Encouragement and appreciation of the importance of this work is well received and noted, and we will continue working on this and continue to get the support from Norway. And as you said, the champions, I think that's a lesson that something we'll pick from here, that we can have champions for women in climate smart agriculture. Going forward, to continue with the work of the networks, and to continue to support the implementation of the program. Yes, and continue to celebrate the achievements indeed. Thank you so much. We have a few more minutes. So Dr. Naja Thomas, Madam Grace, you've heard what Mr. Od has said in his contribution to this discussion. What will you like to see from partners and other stakeholders to continue to support GCAPS? And what do you see as, in the context of, a way forward for the implementation?
Well, we've heard it all. The GCAPS is to be celebrated. But then there were lots of challenges, and a lot more has to be done. And of course, this can only be done with the support of governments, partners, and other stakeholders. I would like to say that this category of people, our governments, partners, should consider supporting these great initiatives through their policies, and of course, ensuring continuous funds for implementation. There is a high need to increase funds and to upscale, the activities on the ground. Sometimes, for me, actually, I feel like there are misplaced priorities in our governments, because all through this conference, we've heard of food and nutrition, And I sit back, I ask myself, who are those producing this food? They are small-scale women on the ground. Who are those feeding the children who are called stunted? They are those women on the ground. Who are those who have the knowledge of nutrition? They are the starters to feed the babies who are born. If they don't have the knowledge, they are not trained, they are not sensitized. Why won't we continue talking of stuntedness in Africa? Yet, this category of people, very little is put in the coffers of our country's budgets to ensure that their activities are driven through. When I consider I have been in the Ministry of Gender all through, I've been in university, Department of Gender, head of department, all of this, I've been with women at all levels. And at the ministry, I realized that when it comes to budgeting, the least consideration is given to the gender ministry. So how much can we drive across with and especially the smallholder women farmers? So I think there is a need. There is a need to create even more climate smart agricultural hubs in our regions. We saw in the picture, right now, the oven is still there and women still go and dry. But how many of them are there in the regions? These hubs are necessary in each country to encourage experience sharing, showcasing the trainings we have had, and restituting and encouraging them to continue. I think our governments, partners, stakeholders, they need to identify and encourage networking among organizations who are working in the area of climate change, climate smart agricultural technologies, gender issues for the benefit of smallholder farmers. I still want to salute this initiative because it never would have happened that when I look at the 6 divisions of the Southwest region, to get representatives, all of them, within a network for climate change. And you see, when you have this kind of umbrella organizations, its information is easily disseminated to many more grassroots women. So there is a need to encourage this. And of course, there is a need to encourage more female-led civil society organizations, because that's through the ministries of gender. Because I realized that the experience we had in Cameroon paid off, and is still paying off. Because these female-led organizations, they are hardly considered in projects implementation. But our experience showed that the female-led organizations, those 4 that the GCAPS took on board, they were pragmatic, they were on the field, they were realistic, and the results were evident. Why not encourage them? Because most often they are sent, they are not even cared for, they are not even looked for. But GCAPS had a critical reason to ensure that the gender ministry to take up this and for this category of women to be considered. Also, I think there's need to empower the pilot implementing groups in this first phase. They should serve as models in other countries in the climate smart agricultural practice for smallholder farmers. And lastly, I want to say that our governments, our stakeholders and partners should identify and upscale GCAS best practices. I think that's one of the major objectives. There is still a lot more, but how can the upscaling come forth when the resources are lacking? I think there is a need. I don't know how, Madam Esterine, but this message has to go across the board. We are here talking of CAADP, talking of food and nutrition, but the people are on the ground. Our government should put in resources. Let these women feel their partners in the whole development process. I think it's their right on the continent of Africa. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you so much for what has been said by NORAD. I would say that for message to the governments should open up markets for smallholder farmers, because this is very important, and especially for women, because most of the times women are producers, but when it comes to selling, they are not in the picture. So governments should make sure that they open markets for women smallholder farmers, and even they should link them to some off-takers who can buy their products. And also, the governments should sustain the programs which are started by GCASP. The programs should just end abruptly, but the government should continue with the projects which started. And also, it is very important for the governments to provide resources for the project, because GCASP started with the project, but the governments should help their own governments to mobilize resources which can continue with the activities of the projects. And to the partners and to stakeholders, it is very important that stakeholders, for example, in our country, we have ministries who are involved in agriculture, environment, forestry, irrigation, water, economic planning. It is very important for these stakeholders to work together. They should not work in silos. And also, all the stakeholders should work in a coordinated manner, whereby the Minister of Gender should champion the activities on women. And for GCASP, the project was a success, as we have seen the impacts which it has made. And it is very important that GCASP should have a successor project, because we saw that the first project phased out. So we are crying for another project, because the women there saw the fruits of this project. So there is need for successor project to take over from the first project. And also to GCASP, there is need to assist women smallholder farmers, because to continue assisting the women smallholder farmers, because the activities, most of them were in the infant stage. So it is very important for GCASP to continue assisting. And this can be done if we can mobilize enough resources which can take off or which can assist the activities of the project. So this is what I can say. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Grace. So much you.
Yeah, you have the spiral? Okay. Well, I just had one word to the GCAPs, the AUD, NEPAD and the GCAPs, the way forward. Firstly, we will all agree that the GCAP has a lot of potential. And I was going to I propose, at the end of the implementation in Cameroon, I propose what I call the climate smart agricultural spiral model, which I developed for Cameroon. And well, we could not project it. This model, you know, looking at it, it is my wish. I was going to talk to the GCAPs, and Madame Esterine is here. They're looking at that model. There is the takeoff point. And most of what we benefited from, the, prioritized training, capacity building. I want to join my voice with Grace to say that there should be continuity. I don't know how, but there should be continuity, because with these trainings, there's the possibility of upscaling in these 5 countries, and not only these 5 countries. We have other 50 African countries that are waiting for their turn, and I'm sure they are in this hall. I don't think they are contented to know that it's only 5 countries: Cameroon, Ethiopia, Rwanda, Malawi, and Niger. So if this such a laudable project, does not continue, and funds is not, how will the other countries, and we are here talking of nutrition, food, the other countries, they are more than the 5. These were just pilot countries. And for this to happen, there's need for resources. And this will lead from the spiral I developed. I realized that if this prioritized trainings, capacity building is continuous, we really saw the results. This will lead to integrated agricultural services and beneficial to women smallholder farmers. For example, projects on climate smart technology and practice will continue, and it could lead to the granting of seed capital like we experienced in Cameroon, which was very useful. And with this seed capital, It will lead to innovation, innovative agricultural inputs and techniques that could lead to increased farm yields, as was the case with the Southwest Women Agribusiness Network. And with increased farm yield, of course, there will be increased we'll talk of increased household food and nutrition security. And finally, there will be more stability, more income and stability for families and young people. And why not more employment opportunities on the continent for youth? On a final note to the GCAPS, I want to say that amidst all the challenges, permit me to emphasize that Africa needs the GCAPS. Whether we like it or not, we are here to shout it loud that Africa, the government must hear, the stakeholders must hear, the partners must hear. Africa needs the GCAPS. If we are talking of CAADP, food and nutrition, they need the GCAPS. With the benefits recorded on the ground, smallholder farmers in Africa deserve to have more programs and have resources to continue putting nutritious foods on our table. They are the women who put the food on the table of the presidents, of the directors, of the ministers. They need the GCAPS. Thank you, Madam Minister.
Thank you so much to this wonderful panel. I am seeing the hands. I don't know whether they will kick us out of the room, but I don't know whether we can take even one question, two questions from the floor, please. Yes, this is going to be difficult. Manja, please help so that we can take.
I think I'm going to allow less than a minute per person. How many hands are up? Judith, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Okay, 20 seconds each. We'll go around like this. I think, yeah, 10. So I give you 2 minutes before we're kicked out of the room, unfortunately. Yeah, Judith, then we'll go to this second row, then we'll move to this side and that side. So I counted 10, yeah. Quick and short. Thank you.
You can hear me, I hope. Yeah, just following on what Prof has said about how the program can be expanded and extended in the countries that it's ending. I think now we need to start focusing more on what real climate change is, you know, the changing seasonalities of our weather patterns and the like, so that now you start training the women on how to now deal with that particular change in weather patterns, yet they need to continue growing the crops. That was just my intervention. Thank you.
Thank you. Like your intervention. I think there was a hand on the floor in front, then you will follow. Thank you.
My name is Precious, representing one of the women groups in Zambia. So after listening to the stories, watching the overview, I'm going to agree with Dr. Thomas. When are we having those projects in countries like Zambia that haven't benefited after seeing the success of the pilot countries? Thank you.
Precious, gentleman behind.
Okay, thank you so much. My name is Friday Chamfia. I want to ask you, I want to first of all appreciate the initiatives that have been put in place, but I want to ask you to help out women and doing all these programs. What are the interventions that have been put in place to incorporate youth movements so that they can support our mothers in terms of working on these kind of projects? Because I believe they can't just do it alone, and we have got youths who have got capacity in terms of trying to work together with the women-led organizations that these programs can be rolled out everywhere. Thank you.
Next gentleman.
Thank you very much. My name is Oton Mululuma, and I just wanted to appreciate, I usually have questions for such interactions, just flip and get some answers, but I would love to appreciate, because I'm a listener, and there's some keywords that were really came out and stood out for me from the initiative itself about how women are actually championing conservation as well as issues of climate change. We usually have dialogues in which people promise they will engage women, and you find that they only engage women temporarily, and there is no continuation of such engagement. So I'd love to appreciate that there is capacity and there's also women being involved in decision making. Africa is centrally traditional, and you find that decision making is deprived of women for them to be involved, and it's good that they are taking the center stage to actually champion such initiatives. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I think we can move to this room. Yes. Oh, sorry, one more hand there, the gentleman in there.
Okay, my name's Emmanuel Chilufya, a grassroots climate advocate. And my question is, I've heard that there are programs which they talk or teach women about how they're supposed to practice sustainable farming to avoid climate impact. But are these women also taught in terms of climate change adaptation in case of a climate crisis? Maybe, for example, if we had to get to have drought, are these women taught on how to adapt to that drought, or what they can use to plant for them to sustain their families and others? Thank you.
Thank you very much. We move to the middle row. Yes.
Afternoon. My name's Maggie Nkolemsonda. Thank you very much, Ma'am, and I'm very humbled and happy that you are all here. And I think for Zambia, it's now. As you go back, we appreciate the women in Zambia to work with the youths. I think we need to start now. And what I'm saying, in Zambia, we've got a lot of water, big land, huge land, a lot of cooperatives. So as you go back, I think maybe even next month we have to start with Zambia, because it's raining, and all the provinces, we have a lot of rains. Especially in the northwestern, it's raining every day. So thank you very much. I'm humbled.
Another hand at the back, the woman in red, then we'll come back to the front.
Good afternoon. I'm Emma Piri from Gender Division. With me, I would like to thank the panelists. This is really inspiring, because the moment I saw the topic, the Gender Climate Change Agriculture Support Program, I got very excited knowing that I'm coming from a gender machinery. Much as, yes, it's no longer a ministry, but it is actually a division under the Office of the President. And I would like to mention that the President is actually very, very much interested in agriculture. It's one of the sectors that is really selling, like the previous speaker is just from mentioning. Zambia has got a lot of water, we've got natural resources, we are rich, so to speak. So having said that, I'm urging the women, the Zambian women, that for anything to do with gender, please come through. That is your office. Come through to Gender Division so that we can work together. The next meeting, I would be more than happy to see such a gathering in wherever country will be commemorating the 15th ADFNS and the 20th CADIP. Zambia to be among the showcasing countries, like we've seen in the catalog for women agribusiness. And also to NORAD, can you please extend the support to Zambia? I submit.
Thank you very much, the gentleman in front. Then we'll move to the last row.
Thank you very much. I'm glad I joined this session to hear about this great work. I have just two small questions. One, what do you see as some of the conditions that need to be in place to ensure that women play a bigger role in the markets related to their products? And then two, do you have a component on zero waste of this project? Because a lot is happening, and maybe there are some of the waste materials that are coming out of the various processes. Is there a part that deals with that within this project? Thank you, a great work.
I think some people hadn't raised their hands because I'm on question number 9 and I said we're taking 10. So the gentleman there, then one on this side. All right, 2 on this side, we'll take 11. Yeah, thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. My name is Martin from Zambia.
My question is, firstly, to appreciate the panelists and the countries that have done the project for the successes scored. I've heard a lot of successes talked about, but my question is on the sustainability measures that were built into the program. I think I didn't hear that coming out, and that is in light of, I think, more requests of more funding for expansion and things like that, and the beautiful results that have been reported. But my concern is more on what sustainability measures were built. Thank you.
Throw, the lady in the African fabric.
Okay, thank you so much. My name is Valerie Walwita, just here in Zambia. Yeah, for me, it's not really a question. It's a compliment and also maybe an answer to one of the questions that have been asked. Just as Dr. Thomas mentioned that women understand the nutrition requirements of a family. So it is important to make sure that women are involved at all levels of production systems in the agriculture sector. So in that regard, I just want to bring to the attention of the panel that actually in Zambia, we have projects we have a community development trust, that project that works with women in terms of planting genetic resource increase in line with the resilient seed systems. So what these women do, they grow seed that are resilient to the climate, like climate change, smart agriculture. So I want to answer my brother who was talking about how do women adapt to the climate change. So actually right here in Zambia, we have women that are doing, they are doing a production of seed for resilient times, like drought-resistant varieties of different crops, legumes, just for food security and also nutrition. So at all levels, they have these nutritive diets so as to contribute to the food and nutrition problem that we are solving.
Thank you,
yeah,
Valerie.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for that tangible, pragmatic example you've given us. Last input, thank you.
Hello, I'm Julia Fofana from Sierra Leone. I want us to look at manual labor as opposed to mechanism. Like for us in West Africa, we cannot afford to put the whole into the museum because mechanism is way far for us. So please, let us be looking at manual labor because the manual labor is becoming so expensive that women have to rush back because the climate change is so erratic. Women have to rush back to burning bushes just to meet up with, to get their farms ready for the first rain. Also, are we looking at agroforestry, which creates a good ecosystem for farming to thrive and also livestock? Let us look at agroforestry, which brings the community together, right? And also provide land for those who don't have land. Because there is sure to be forests around and some are dying, we need to make use of those forests. And also use of organics. Organics in Africa, we import a lot of onions, which is very vital in foods, right? So if we train our women farmers to use organic as opposed to chemical organic, right, we would have more yields because most women don't know how to use those chemicals. It sometimes burn the onions and other vegetables. So please let us look at those. Thank you.
Turn off your mic, please, Valerie. Thank you. Thank you very much. So over to the panelists. I don't know, Madam, if we can just give the panelists less than a minute each to try and respond to some of the input that came from the floor in terms of Okay, so just 1 minute each, and just I wanted to say that there's a lot that this program is doing, including climate smart agriculture practices, but we couldn't present everything this afternoon. So over to you, thank you.
Okay, thank you so much. I'll just say something on the issue of sustainability measures for the project. You have asked, is there any sustainability measures for the project? Yeah, there are sustainability measures. You have seen that we mentioned about cooperatives. Cooperatives is one way of sustaining a project. When the women are put in groups and these groups are there, they can access markets, and this is one of the sustainability measures. And another sustainability measure is through governments. The governments are there. They have to provide budgets for women economic empowerment programs. So if they put money in the women economic programs in the departments, for example, I'm coming from the Gender Affairs Department, where issues of women are mainstreamed. So the government, the Minister of Gender, should have a budget, and if the budget is not enough, the government should put more money in that program so that the government can take over the activities which were started by the project. So I can chip in on that one. Thank you.
Well, just to add, to what you said, I think sustainability is on the part of, it's on different levels, because even the women themselves, after all of this, they had some mechanisms, some of the groups have mechanisms to sustain what they learn, and they are moving on with it, while the government also is chipping in a little bit, but still insufficient. With regards to when it's coming, I think that Madam Esterin, to Zambia, I'm sure more resources will bring it to the other countries. I like the question about the youth, intervention of the youth. Yes, I think like I said, there is a baby, a GCAPS baby in Cameroon, the Southwest Women and Youth Agribusiness Network. Most of the people there, they are youths, and most of the groups that were legalized were youth groups who have been operating, and they didn't know, so GCAPS did that. So I think on a general note, and due to time, we can't go into details, but I think the organizers have taken note of some of the issues that could be dealt with. Yeah. About the markets, I think she dealt a lot with the market. And cooperatives are also what we call group entrepreneurship. They are markets for women. And that's what some of our groups are doing. So thank you very much.
No, thank you. Some very good interventions here and questions. And I think what is key now going forward is to find technologies that are relevant to women. Machineries are also gender biased to some extent, and find the right technologies that women can use, I think is critical. But finally, there is not enough funding to drive a big program that can fuel the changes that you're pointing at. But there is a number of programs that are similar to this in all of these countries by NGOs, civil society, government programs, etc. But they are not connected. There's very little learning between those projects. But when you get into project mode, you also can lose some of the energy. It's a bit of a challenge to you. I mean, you are champions, clearly. So it's a question of, can this become a movement? Instead of looking for another project, it is the energy that you all bring in here, the willingness to change. And look beyond the project. The project is there and has to come, but could you turn this into something greater? I'm just posing the challenge to you, because this is very inspiring, and you will inspire more than the people that are in this room, I'm sure. Thank you very much.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. Wow, a movement is born. I'm sure we probably will be launching something sometime soon. Thank you so much, Ord, for that. Thank you, Dr. Nigel Thomas. Thank you, Ms. Grace. Thank you, all participant colleagues, for the contributions from the floor. A lot of your, well, not questions, but good contributions that we have taken on board. As you can see from the African Union Development Agency side, there is this is a priority for the organization. But beyond the organization, for me as a person, there is a passion. And for Edna gives her all on this project. We will continue. I mean, talking about sustainability, some of the governments have actually incorporated national budgets to this program, which is very encouraging as well. So we want to thank you. I want to thank the panelists, give them a big hand. We are continue to work with Norway to get those resources. And I'm taking the moderator's role now, but let me hand back the mic to her to do the rest of the session. Thank you very much for a very, very good session. Thank you.
Madam Estorine. Yeah, the panelists can leave, but you are supposed to give at least 1-2 final remarks, yeah, to close for us. Thank you. So you are not released yet. Yeah, I think it's fine.
Thank you so much. I thought I did that already, but you know, the goal of the session was to do two things: to share the lessons and experiences from the implementation of the GCAPS program. So we learn from each other, but also to use this opportunity to raise, well, not raise because we are not going to raise the resources here, but as part of our resource mobilization effort to showcase the positive results from the program. And I think that have been effectively done. I think we've made the objective of the session. But more importantly, I think some very good suggestions in terms of how we take this forward have also come out. We have taken good note of these. The program will continue, but also we will explore that suggestion of a movement that the program also can support. So I'm sure there have been registration in the room, and some of the women and young men and that have participated will be reaching out to you to become part of this GCAPS movement. So I really want to thank all of you for your presence, and we've heard the request from Zambia. I can see there's consultation there, but we'll be reaching out to the Zambian government, perhaps as one of the new countries that we might want to add once we figure out how to upscale and outscale the GCAPS program with regard to adding more countries in the participating countries. So thank you very much, Manja, and please let's give a big hand to you and to Edna for the excellent work that she's done with regard to this project. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Madame Estorine, and for our esteemed panelists. We've come to the close of the program, but for those that would like to stay in touch with us, please come to the front. We would like to take your details if you want to know more of the program, as well as to give us input on how we do phase 2 in terms of the thinking around the movement, the engaging more with the youth. I think you can come to the front and we'll take down your details. Thank you. Have a good evening.